call roll so we know who's here. That'll be very helpful.
Supervisor Bartlett and Supervisor Hahn are absent. Mayor Mitchell,
Here.
Councilmember Robinson,
Here.
Councilmember Vizcaino.
Here. Cassie, we have a quorum. Okay, so members, if I can direct your attention to the agenda, I recommend we take on consent items 1 and 2. Do you have any questions or comments on items 1 or 2?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I just have one question and comment on number 1, but nothing on number 2.
All right, we'll hold a 1 on the desk. We can take item 2 on consent. Can we do anyone, the member of the public, like to speak on item 2?
Mayor Mitchell, you have a disclosure on item 1
Oh, okay.
for car.
Mr. Chairman, I have a disclosure on item 1 that I,
Okay, item 1's on the table. We'll get to that.
it's not on.
No, we're going to vote on item 2.
We're
You
going to
have a
item 2.
disclosure for
Okay.
2 as well.
Oh, on 2
Oh,
as
on item
well.
2. All right.
Okay.
Same disclosure. I do not
Okay,
have
go
a
ahead.
financial interest or a conflict of interest. But those items involve the California Air Resources Board, of which I am a member. So just need to disclose that for the record.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Anyone in the public to speak? Do we have any cards on item 2?
Don't see any.
Okay, see,
I don't think we have any cards here.
no.
Oh, we have one
Thank
person
you.
filling out a card.
On which item?
So I'll move item 2.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to move item 2.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
Mayor Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson.
Aye.
Councilmember Vizcaino.
Aye.
Motion passes 3 ayes.
Thank you. Let's now move to item number 1. Item number 1 is before us.
And since we were talking about putting it on consent, if you don't mind, I'll just ask my questions rather than a presentation.
Go ahead, Mr. Robinson.
Okay, so there was a comment in the staff report about deploying trucks into revenue service. I'm just wondering if you could define that a little bit.
Yes, in this project, they're going to be deployed throughout California, as you remember, ports of Oakland, LA, Long Beach, and San Diego. And the fleets will actually use those trucks in their regular business schedule, delivering drayage to their customers.
And that's what I
So
figured.
they'll be getting paid, using the trucks.
It just said there was some challenges deploying the trucks into revenue service, so that's what I was kind of more.
Well, some of the challenges were EV infrastructure, and that's why we're just redistributing some of the funds so that they'll have charging infrastructure at the locations where they're going to be using the trucks.
Okay, I was just wondering if they're being used more for just on-road testing, but not necessarily for actual business, and there's a little challenge there.
So the phase 1 trucks were that initial testing and learning. The phase 2 trucks are expected to be used as part of their normal duty cycle service.
All right, okay. Well, that answers the question. My one comment's just about the electric charger infrastructure, and I've heard from a few that have tried putting electric charging infrastructure into place that they have some challenges with the permitting process. I think, as our chairman knows, sometimes our permitting departments don't move as swiftly as we'd like them to, and right, whether it's affordable housing or shelters, or it's permits for electrical charging infrastructure. So I think that working with the permitting departments and considering them stakeholders would be a really good idea, so that we can better communicate ahead of time kind of what we're seeing as potential deployment. Hopefully they can streamline a permit process. So that's my only comment, and with that, I'll move the item.
Thank you. We have a motion. Motion is second. Anyone like to speak? Member of public? Any cards on item number 1?
No, not on this item.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, roll call vote.
Mayor Mitchell,
Aye.
Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Vizcaino.
Aye.
Motion passes 3 ayes.
Thank you. Let us now move to item number 3. Item 3 is before us. Is Kane here for the presentation?
Yes.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Ting Gui, and I will be presenting on agenda item number 3, which is to issue the program announcement for combustion freight and marine projects for the VW mitigation program. To provide some background, the VW program is a 10-year statewide program for which funding has been allocated to 5 project categories. South Coast AQMD is the project administrator for 2 of these project categories, which include combustion freight and marine projects and zero-emission Class 8 freight and port-traded trucks for $60 and $90 million respectively, for a total of $150 million. The other 3 categories will be administered by the San Joaquin Valley APCD and Bay Area AQMD. Staff has been actively developing the VW program, which includes developing the administrative budget, project agreement, creating a VW-specific website, and developing a comprehensive grant management system, which includes an online portal for application submittal and tracking. Staff has also been conducting outreach, which included 6 statewide stakeholder work group meetings in collaboration with CARB, San Joaquin Valley APCD, and Bay Area AQMD. During the outreach, we received public input, which were carefully considered during program development, including funding transparency and ease of application. The VW program is expected to undergo several solicitations over the next few years. This item is for the first solicitation of the combustion freight and marine projects category, which will be a competitive solicitation. And for this category, at least 2 solicitations are anticipated. Also of note is that San Joaquin Valley APCD released their zero-emission transit, school, and shuttle buses category on October 21st, 2019, and that release is a first-come, first-served release. In regards to the proposal, the first installment of the program funds will be $30 million for the combustion freight and marine projects category, and eligible projects will include Class 7 and 8 freight trucks, which includes waste haulers, dump trucks, and cement mixers, and freight switcher locomotives, ferries, tugboats, and towboats. Applications will have to be submitted through the online application portal, and solicitation is expected to close by 1 p.m. on March 4th of 2020. The recommended action is to issue the program announcement for $30 million for the combustion freight and marine projects category. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
So this is Naveen Berry. Before we get into the question and answers, I just wanted to also add, we've been getting some last minute changes from ARB. That's not going to reflect in any of the program announcements, just the way the process may be followed. So I just wanted to let everybody know that may, before the board packet is released to the public, may have some minor tweaks.
So what would trigger, say if you feel that ARB has something that's going to be beyond the scope, would you bring it back to this committee?
Yes, sir. We would certainly bring it back with any major changes. We'll work with our legal group to see if they consider those administrative changes versus a major shifts to the program announcement.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, because I think maybe we could discuss some considerations where we could just go straight to the board. Part of the consideration we know that ARB is looking at is how do we notify parties of the solicitation. You know, we would normally do it through distribution, emails. We may do some local notification in papers. But because we're acting as a pass-through for the state on this, we now are looking at statewide responsibilities for notification. And so we're trying to understand what are those mechanisms. We don't want to spend a lot of money on the notification. We'd much rather spend it on the emission reduction aspect.
Sure.
So that's part of the discussion that we're having with ARB. And if it pleases the committee, I would ask that if we're able to resolve those issues with ARB, that kind of change not necessitate coming back to the committee.
Good with that? Members, any questions?
I would just say that's a good idea to not have to come back to the committee just to take it to the board. I think there's an urgency to get the money out there and start getting the incentive money out there.
Right.
I'm wondering whether, because obviously San Joaquin and Bay Area have their own outreach tentacles, let's say, can we use them for state outreach or not?
Well, when the whole concept of how the VW funds were going to be distributed, myself, Syed, and Jack Broadbent actually talked about doing just that. So that when we issued the solicitation, they would notify all their people, we would notify our people. But this is where, ARB is taking a different tact and trying to put more of the responsibility on the group that's distributing the funds. So that's why we're sort of having these discussions.
And I think Wayne covered it well. We're also going to coordinate with CAPCOA, so the smaller air districts are also aware of the opportunity, and we'll be placing the program announcement on all 3 respective websites, as well as ARB's, to make sure that there's statewide awareness of this availability of funds. So similar to the process that San Joaquin followed.
With the school buses.
We all received roughly similar pots of money, as I recall. I wouldn't be too choked up if all the projects were in our district, but we'll see.
Any further discussion?
I have one question that's kind of in the weeds a little bit, but there's a requirement to keeping mileage records, and I was wondering what the rationale. I understand why you'd want to keep why you'd need the records, but is there some threshold, like a certain minimum number of miles for a replacement of some vehicle? Or
So the projects are typically ranked on cost effectiveness.
Okay.
So the actual usage comes into play in that calculation as well. So when we approve the projects, we need to be able to monitor a certain amount of usage to justify the issuance of those funds that are within this cost effectiveness ranking.
Sure, and that makes total sense. I want to kind of throw out something to think about as we move forward with these, and that's that especially in the drayage community, the number of miles that are moved is going to be pretty low, but they're going to be mainly driven in one of our AB 617 communities, and so the impact will be hyper local and pretty significant, although the mileage numbers might be fairly low. The hours on the engine's probably going to be pretty high, which means there's a lot of idling going on, whether it's in the ports or it's going back and forth between a rail yard. So it's just something to consider. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Are we tracking hours?
We're tracking hours as well for especially the marine and the freight switchers, because different entities look at it in different
absolutely, yeah.
parameters.
The ships and the trains are going to be more hour focused, where the trucks are going to be more mileage focused, and that's just my concern on the truck side, is that the ones that are probably doing a lot of work are not going to put a lot of miles on. We talked about that a little bit at that CNGVP meeting at TTSI, and just so like for instance, their facility was right across the street from one of the container terminals. They could do 10 trips in a day and put 15 miles on the truck or something like that, right? So multiply that over 250, and their number of miles is really low, even though that truck is operating 8 hours or more a day for the entire year. So.
Yeah, no, your point is well taken.
Yeah.
Item number 4 will talk about how we're going to be looking at AB 617 specifically, and how that may not be the same consideration as opposed to the VW.
Sure, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any cards on the item? Speaker cards?
Let's see. No, we have cards on 4 and 5, but not on 3.
Okay. Thanks, Judy. Okay, so with that, we have a motion to approve item 3.
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Vizcaino,
Yes.
motion passes 3 ayes.
Thank you. Okay, let us now move to item 4. Item 4 is now before us. We have a staff presentation from Vicki White.
Yes, thank you. With this item, staff is seeking approval to adopt a resolution, execute contracts, amend awards, transfer funds, and reimburse administrative costs for Carl Moyer and other incentive programs. In March of this year, the board approved release of a program announcement to solicit projects for the Carl Moyer program. This PA closed in June and was heavily oversubscribed, with funding requests totaling 8 times the amount of available Carl Moyer program funds. However, this year, in addition to the Carl Moyer program funds, other funding sources are available, including CAP incentives, the state reserve, which is the portion of the Carl Moyer program funding that is reserved by CARB for projects at their discretion, and funding agricultural reduction measures for emission reductions, also known as the Farmer Program. Each of these programs offer funding for projects eligible through the Carl Moyer program. Given the CAP incentives that are available this year, staff conducted targeted outreach for the AB 617 communities, in addition to the regular outreach we do every year for the Carl Moyer program. Some of these outreach efforts included providing program funding information and staff support at the community steering committee meetings, coordination with the ports to provide funding information to over 2,200 drayage truck fleets that are registered in the DTR, as well as outreach to the terminal operators. We sent emails out to over 16,000 subscribers to our Carl Moyer listserv, as well as emails to warehouse facilities. We conducted enhanced outreach to agricultural entities and associations in the Coachella Valley region. With regard to the CAP incentives, this is the second year of CAP incentives received by the South Coast AQMD. The grant agreement was executed in May for a total of about $85 million. This grant allows funding for projects that are eligible through the Carl Moyer program. To receive these funds, CARB requires a board resolution. This slide shows the total project funds that are available from each funding source this year, including a grand total of about $119 million. The staff proposal is to approve awards for projects meeting the eligibility requirements of each grant program, including the Carl Moyer and Soon Provision Program, State Reserve, Farmer, and CAP incentives. Staff is seeking approval to redistribute the funds for the incentive awards as needed to meet program and liquidation targets. Since the CAP incentives are tied to a shorter liquidation timeframe, staff is requesting this flexibility to redistribute the funds from one project to another to assure the spending deadline can be met. Given the large number of recommended awards in this item, staff expects a small percentage of projects to fall through. This item includes a backup list of eligible projects totaling about $14 million. Staff proposes to fund projects on the backup list in the event any projects are not implemented or result in return funds. Staff also proposes to amend an existing award with PED equipment for 19 instead of 21 off-road engines, with no change in the award amount. This change in engine count is a result of staff's confirmation that 2 off-road units for this fleet are single engine units and not dual engine units as originally stated in the application. And finally, staff proposes to add funds to an existing contract with Trinity to make needed updates and improvements to the Carl Moyer online application system and transfer funds to continue the truck replacement program, also known as our voucher incentive program for small fleets. The recommended projects for all programs in this item are a result of the criteria and/or priorities specified in the respective grant agreements. Both the Carl Moyer and CAP incentives have specific requirements for disadvantaged and low-income communities. The Carl Moyer program, for example, specifies that at least 50% of the program allocation must be spent on projects in disadvantaged communities, whereas the CAP incentives require that at least 70% of the funds be used to benefit disadvantaged communities. And 80%, at least 80% of these funds for projects that will benefit AB 1550 communities. These include disadvantaged communities, low-income communities, as well as low-income communities that are within a half-mile radius of a disadvantaged community. To assure these requirements can be met, staff only evaluated projects that are located in these communities. All of the projects were evaluated for eligibility based on the 2017 Carl Moyer program guidelines. For the CAP incentive, staff are recommending projects based on the following. All eligible projects that are located within an AB 617 community have been included. Any other zero emission projects have also been included. Staff also recommends near zero emission projects where zero emission technologies are not feasible, and additional DAC projects located within a 5-mile radius of an AB 617 community, since these projects may operate and reduce emissions in the nearby 617 community and will contribute to meeting the grant requirement for benefits to disadvantaged and low-income communities. Please note that 100% of the recommended projects for the CAP incentives are in disadvantaged and low-income communities. For the other programs, including Carl Moyer, Soon, State Reserve, and Farmer, all eligible projects were ranked based on cost effectiveness, and the most cost-effective projects were selected first for the funding consideration. This includes projects with a cost effectiveness from about $2,000 per ton up to $25,000 per ton. All the remaining projects were placed on the backup list. The total recommended awards for each program are summarized here. Please note that the total CAP incentive awards has been revised to reflect changes that have occurred to some projects just this week. These changes include the withdrawal of 11 projects and increased funding for one project, resulting in about a $200,000 less in recommended awards. The revised total of recommended awards is now at $107.8 million. Copies of the revised board letter are available, and I have them here if you would like a copy. This slide shows the estimated emission reduction benefits from the recommended projects. Please note 100% of these projects and the projects on the backup list are located in disadvantaged or low-income communities. So with that, the recommended action items are to adopt the resolution to receive the community air protection incentives totaling up to $86 million, execute Carl Moyer and Soon provision contracts up to $33.9 million, execute off-road equipment contracts that are eligible this year for the Carl Moyer State Reserve Program, execute off-road agricultural contracts up to $1.8 million for the Farmer Program, authorize the executive officer to redistribute the source of funds between Carl Moyer, which includes the Soon Program, State Reserve, Farmer, and associated interest and match funds, and CAP incentives in order to meet program and liquidation requirements. Execute contracts for mobile source projects for the AB 617 CAP incentives program totaling $68.6 million. Execute contracts from projects on the backup list if funds become available. Amend the Soon provision award with PEED for the engine change in engine count at no additional cost. And amend a contract with Trinity to make enhancements, improvements to our Carl Moyer online application system in an amount up to $90,000. And these funds will be used from the admin portion of the Carl Moyer program. And finally, transfer $3 million from our Fund 80 to our Carl Moyer Voucher Incentive Program to be able to continue funding truck replacements with small fleets. And administratively, we need to reimburse the general fund for Carl Moyer administrative costs related to these programs. And this concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Vicki. Any questions, members?
So, Mr. Chairman, I have to make another disclosure that I have no financial interest in this item on the agenda, but I am a member of the California Resources Board and a board member of the sanitation districts of Los Angeles County, both of which are involved in this issue, in this agenda item.
Thank you. I too need to, for the record, for this agenda item, I don't have a financial interest, but I'm required to identify for the record that I am a board member of the sanitation district of LA County, which is involved in this item. So with that, questions, comments, colleagues?
Public comment on this one, right?
I know
There is a
we
public
have-
comment on this
we have
item.
comments. Sure, please come forward.
It's Andrew Delaney.
Andrew, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak on item 4.
Thank you. I have a prepared statement. Hello, my name is Drew Delaney. I'm with Associates Environmental, which represents many applicants to the Coral Moyer
Start the
program.
clock. Thank you.
I would like to thank the district governing board on behalf of my customers for the opportunity to apply for funding to implement projects which reduce air pollution, and thank the district staff for their hard work in implementing the projects. Today, I would like to comment on how the public perceives certain language provided in the program announcement for Carl Moyer Memorial Air Quality Standards Attainment Program, Year 21, PA 2019-02. That's the program announcement for the grant awards considered by this item and lays the framework for several sources of grant funding. The program announcement as issued specified each project would be evaluated based on 2 primary criteria: the cost effectiveness and the project status with respect to disadvantaged community and low income criteria. For the past 2 years, oversubscription of the program has led to approval of only projects meeting the disadvantaged and low income community criteria, with no regard to the cost effectiveness of projects outside these communities. I recommend to the district to make changes to the upcoming program announcement by either providing a statement explaining that if the program is oversubscribed, the only primary eligibility requirement is the project's status with respect to disadvantaged community and low-income criteria, or create separate program announcements for each program based on its funding source, reflecting the specific goals and eligibility criteria tied to those funds. Taking this recommendation would make how the district implements the selection of projects for approval more in line with how the public perceives the program announcement. Thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other cards?
There's no other cards on this item.
No one here in Los Angeles. So I'd like to entertain a motion to approve item 4.
I'll move the item. I'll move approval of
Thank you.
the whole list of things that are in the staff recommendation.
I think it's almost a record, 11.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson.
Aye.
Councilmember Buscaino.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, let's now move to item number 5. Ms. White?
Okay, good afternoon. This item is requesting to execute a contract to demonstrate fuel cell range extended dredge trucks. In April 2017, the board recognized CEC's Alternative and Renewable Fuel and Vehicle Technology Program. So under this grant, 3 contracts have been executed to demonstrate zero and near zero emission dredge truck and cargo handling equipment. So among those contracts, a contract with Velocity Vehicle Group partnering with Efficient Drivetrain was executed to develop and demonstrate 1 battery electric and 3 CNG plug-in hybrid dredge trucks. Subsequently, 2019, Cummins acquired EDI as well as Hydrogenics, which is a fuel cell provider, and Cummins has proposed to rescope the project, and CEC has approved the change of the contractor and project scope from their business meeting on November 13th, Wednesday this week. Cummins proposed to replace BBG as the project lead and revised project scope from 1 battery electric and 3 plug-in hybrid to 4 fuel cell Class 8 duty truck with over 200-mile range to leverage technology and expertise of its recent acquisition of EDI and Hydrogenics. Hydrogenics will provide the fuel cell stack into this project, and the vehicles will be delivered by early 2021, followed by at least a 12-month demonstration with data collection. And the committee will cover any additional cost to change the project scope. The fuel cell technology has an advantage over battery electric technology, especially for the longer range, over 200, 300 the duty trucks, based upon current technology level. So we support both technology in parallel under our zero emission heavy duty truck portfolio. In addition, there is an ongoing fuel cell duty truck demo project by Kenworth and Toyota, funded by CARB Zenzev. So this is a good opportunity to encourage another large OEM to commercialize the fuel cell technology on duty trucks. So recommended action is to execute a contract with Cummins in an amount not to exceed $3.5 million from Clean Fuel Fund, which is the same amount to initial contract. And this proposed project will develop and demonstrate 4 fuel cell range extended duty trucks. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Members, any questions on item 5?
I don't have any questions, but there is one card here, Chairman, for public comment.
Please come forward. Thank you, Judy.
And it's Ranji George. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Thanks.
My name is Ranji George, and I worked in AO for 25 years. In the first part, I was in the research development, the other was the implementation. So I'm familiar with these technologies. I just want to support this motion of supporting fuel cell heavy-duty fuel cell vehicle development. But I'm continuing to be concerned, sir, ladies and gentlemen, that there's such a huge amount of money going into battery electrics. Almost, if you calculate and add up, it's like 80% of all the millions and millions of dollars being spent at various levels, and only 20% to hydrogen fuel cells. And this is particularly unfortunate in the light-duty sector, where the technology has crossed the R&D stage and reached the commercial stage. When we were working, and I was there in the 90s, we were trying to get hydrogen fuel cells off the ground. I'm glad it's off the ground, but it was at the research and commercial research stage almost at that stage. Now we are at the commercial stage, and this is the time we need to support wholeheartedly the introduction of hydrogen vehicle. CEC is putting some money, but if you compare what ARB, PUC, and all the support, the current support seem to have swung sharply towards light-duty battery vehicles. And I urge you not to keep a fair, balanced approach to this. The reason why I'm saying is hydrogen fuel cells have very little footprint at the end of the cycle, minimum. Whereas batteries, as I mentioned before and keep mentioning, battery is going to create an apocalypse of a recycling problem not in 10 years, maybe 15 years, but 20 years. After the batteries are used in cars, it may go into stationary sources, which are very good. That's a great application. But then we have to confront the fact these batteries will have to be recycled or somehow reused. And the technology is not there. And when I was working in technology, I used to work with the top labs, call them up and encourage them to apply for funding to resolve problems that are anticipated in the future. So in the same way, this technology committee should scale up your efforts on battery recycling. We should solve it now and don't let our next generation have to face these problems. If we don't do that, your efforts to help the low environmental justice communities will be flawed because they have to deal with it. Either Wilmington folks or some poor folks in Appalachia or Detroit or in third world countries. So I urge you to keep this a serious matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Any others?
Nope, no one else here.
Thank you. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve item 5.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Mitchell,
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson.
Aye.
Councilmember Vizcaíno,
Aye.
motion passes 3 ayes.
Wonderful. Okay, with that, we have a discussion item. Next, item number 6.
Good afternoon, council member, mayor. This is a brief update on the core infrastructure process. It's a renewable transportation fuel from pyrolysis. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Phil Barocca. I'm the Technology Advancement Office. Okay, moving right along. Okay, so as background, again, this is a demonstration project in which Core Infrastructure is demonstrating their pyrolysis technology to convert biomass into a renewable transportation fuel. We provided an update to this committee in July on the progress of the report, for the project, and in September, the board moved to amend the contract to allow the project to demonstrate testing and data collection work by the end of this year. So I'm just going to go through a few slides just to provide you with how the project has progressed since last December. So this is the site as of last December. Of course, prior to this, there was efforts to secure the site with a new asphalt cap in compliance with the DTSC, as well as laying the concrete pads for the equipment. The equipment that you see in this picture here was already constructed and was housed at Core's Paramount site, and then moved over to the Olympic site to commence the project. Following an extensive rainy period earlier this year, and then an issue having to do with bringing electric power to the site. It was about May of this year in which Core was able to get construction efforts going. So by July, some of the notable additions to the site up in the upper left is the feedstock conveyor and some of the construction fabrication that was going on. In October, additional progress being made, additional items that had to be fabricated and procured and delivered were brought to the site. Of note is the upper right picture, those are knife gate valves. Those are instrumental in the control of introducing oxygen into the system, which is an integral part of the pyrolysis process. And then as of last week, this is the overall picture of the site. What is notable of note of this picture is really what is missing, and it is the interconnections with the pyrolysis unit with the various equipment that are in the picture, the feedstock conveyor, and then the char conveyor, which takes off the solids, the connection from the pyrolysis system to take the off gases. And so at this point, we are seeing about 60% completion of the contract or the project at this point. This is the schedule that Core has provided us with where the status is on the project. Again, items having to do with fabrication and construction are still a little bit behind. This slide is to basically provide you with what Core has given to us over the past few months as to where they expect to be and where they actually are. So in our estimations, they're falling behind by about, 10 to 15% in their projections. So just in summary, again, the project is looking to getting testing and data collection started by the end of this year. We believe that the project should achieve about 80% completion here by the end of November, according to Core. And we will continue to take site visits. We are requesting that Corps provide us with an update by the middle of by the middle of next month as to where the project stands, and then our recommendations are to continue the project for another 6 months if they can demonstrate significant progress by the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question.
Yes, please.
I wonder how much money has South Coast donated to the core project, or contributed?
2.5 million thus far.
2.5 million. And we have a commitment for more?
There's 1 million that could be awarded, but the scope has changed significantly from once it originally started. You may recall originally it was designed to be in Rialto, and they were going to produce renewable natural gas, and then that in turn was going to fuel a fleet. Prior to the completion of that, they got the offer to go to downtown LA at the Olympic site and look at hydrogen production. We were big proponents of that. We felt that that was worthwhile. And it was within the demonstration of the technology aspect. They didn't meet their original goals that were set forth. And as you've heard, they tend to slip on those goals. So we put them, I want to say, last year on a pretty strict schedule, and gave them extra lead time. They still haven't met the schedule. And so we're at the point where we're keeping a very close eye on this, and we'll see where they are December, but the contract ends in December.
So this methodology produces hydrogen fuel, this pyrolysis?
It can, yes.
It can?
Yes.
What?
We think.
Just because I'm not that smart, can you tell me, like we use digester technology to convert bioproducts
Right.
into CNG, renewable natural gas. Tell me what this process is. How does it work?
So basically, they take any type of an organic material that has hydrocarbons, basically organic material. They heat it up. It's pyrolysis and gasification have a lot of similarities, but they heat up the solids and they drive off the lighter molecules that are like what they refer to as actually as syngas. And that's typically carbon monoxide, CO, carbon dioxide, CO2, a portion is methane, and then a portion is hydrogen. So these become building blocks. That's why they refer to it as syngas, because these are building blocks in which you can then create longer chain molecules of fuel. So we believe that hydrogen and methane are significant products of the pyrolysis process. That's what we are hoping to see come from this project. Yeah.
If I may add, the Corps had previously done a demonstration project at LA County Sanitation District, and were able to generate liquid fuel back then. But based on their assessment, they believe close to 50% of the syngas or the pyrogas that's produced may be hydrogen. We haven't seen that data yet, but that's what they're anticipating in terms of their calculations and production.
So this has never been done before?
No, it's a recognized technology. It's looking at Corps' system and to see how effective it's going to be. There's the parameters that are sensitive on this are the composition of the feedstock, the temperature that you are operating at, the amount of residence time in the system, and how many undesirable products you're going to also produce that would have to be cleaned up to determine if it's really a cost-effective type of a process to produce a viable and qualified fuel. So
one of the byproducts is this biochar.
Right.
And how do you use that?
So biochar can be used as a supplement for fertilizers. So there's a actual usage for that particular material that's would be traditionally just burned on.
Right, there's a similar solid that's produced in the anaerobic digestion process that the folks at CR&R, gentleman in the room from CR&R here,
Yeah.
can attest to the quality of the solids that are coming out as a fertilizer, so this would be a soil amendment as well, so.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have anything else. So what are we supposed to do today? Just talk
Just
about
a
this?
discussion.
This is just a discussion item, no action.
What happens
Appreciate
if
the
they
update.
don't meet the December 31st
We would come back
timeline? Yeah.
to the board and advise them of what our thoughts were with regards to where they are with regards to the actual schedule. And ultimately, the decision would be up to the board. It could vary. Not all demonstration projects are successful.
Sure.
And this is a demonstration project. And as I said, there's still money left on this project. And so the question could be, does it make sense to continue to invest it? Do we see progress? Are we convinced that this might actually work? Or do we say we've got other projects that perhaps we should invest in? And that's what we would present to the board.
Yeah. And I think the same question is important to be asking them because, you know, they've missed so many deadlines along the way that where's this in their own priority list? I really have no idea, but, you know, I know that it's been frustrating for you all, and this is, I think, probably at least the second update we've had, if not the third, and, you know, I've seen the slippage occurring, and, you know, so we'll see if they can meet that deadline. I'm not so sure.
I think it may be important to add that we also have a project with the University of Riverside, and University, they have an RNG department over there now, renewable natural gas department, and so they have recognized the significance of pyrolysis and gasification to handle a lot of the types of bio-waste that's in the state that cannot be dealt with through anaerobic digestion or other processes. So, you know, the technology seems to have, you know, garnered the attention of the folks at UC Riverside as something that's a viable technology for dealing with a lot of the solid biomass that we have here.
There's a lot of significant applications for this technology. In addition to what Phil said, you know, when you're looking at wood waste in the forests, for instance. Right. So when you have, 11 million infected trees, this might be a good opportunity to address some of the energy aspects associated with the destruction of that.
But the feedstock is all organic still, right, for this process?
Correct.
Okay. I guess that is the question for us is what's the value of this demonstration project? What do we think we're going to get out of it? How is it going to be useful to improving air quality? I mean, those are the questions I guess we should be asking when we decide whether we want to put more money into it.
Well, the potential to develop a hydrogen fuel is significant, right?
Yeah.
Because right now we're looking at challenges in the production of hydrogen. And the main technology, steam methane reformation, is very carbon intensive. And so from a ramification perspective, the impact is tremendous. And it certainly is worthy of investment, but we've got to see those milestones being met. And in part, I think part of it just has been, I'll call this a startup. It's always been cash flow, and it's been making sure that there's enough funding. And so the project proponent has gone out for various stages of funding. Those continue. You know, our investment is fixed. So when we look at it from a clean air perspective, tremendous potential.
So they have other sources of funding besides our $2.5 million. Mm-hmm. They've got other partners coming in with money. Who are they?
SoCal Gas have been contributing, and then they have a pretty significant private investment as well. So our portion is a very small portion overall. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's somewhere in the 5% range.
Okay. Okay, so we don't make any decisions today. We're just updating the information, and then it'll come back as we near that December deadline.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, thank you. With that, if there's any other business for this committee?
I just want to, one comment, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Just with being dark in December, and then this is our next meeting would be late January. I won't be a board member anymore, so this is my last committee meeting. Just want to let you all know how much, what a pleasure it's been specifically to serve with both of you during my entire tenure here. And, it's amazing to see the impact that's been made just over the last 4 years. And I just want to commend the staff. I think that you all are doing exceptional work. I'm incredibly impressed. And it's just really been an honor to be a part of this committee and watch technology continue to advance at such a rapid pace. Last night was the election of my successor. His name's Carlos Rodriguez. He's a Yorba Linda City Councilman. So it's not the first time we've had a Yorba Linda City Council member on the board here. Unfortunately, you probably all have heard that former board member Hank Wida passed away just in the last few days at the age of 95, so he lived a great life. But I know that he made a pretty tremendous impact on this board, so I'd appreciate if we could just adjourn in Hank Wida's name.
Without objection.
Without
Thank you, Dwight, for your years of service to this committee, and you have mentioned that in these past 4 years, especially on this committee, we with the proven technology, we're improving lives in our region. Appreciate your commitment to service, and enjoy your free time.
I'll try.
Yes, thank you.
And before we adjourn, I'd like to call on any member of the public like to speak on the general public and non-agenda item. Please come forward. Okay, seeing none, we are now adjourned. Thank you. Have a great weekend.